Can you all hear me at the back?
Yep. Yes.
Right. Now, thanks, first of all, for all coming on this tour. This tour is terrific. You can hear about the Krays. As far as I'm concerned, lovely people.
We're after you, Frank.
Oh, that's all right. It's only my usual escort. Oh, it's all right. Don't let them pass. Let's have a good chase. We're going to go to the terminals. That's where I was shot. In the head. Terrific shot.
Evering Road.
Oh, this is Evering Road, where Jack the Hat was killed. Jack the Hat was a smashing fella, but his wife pissed off and left him with his little baby, little son, and he couldn't handle it. And when he come out, he got very heavy into drugs, booze, was very abusive, was a horrible man, made insulting comments about Reggie and Ronnie for no reason at all, and even their mum, and things like that, things that none of you would stand for. Any self-respecting man wouldn't stand for. And Reggie quite rightly killed him. I would have. Anyone would have. Who had any moral fibre in them, you know, to be insulted like that for no reason at all. And that's why Jack the Hat got murdered. And quite rightly and all, in my opinion. Well, from here, we'll be going to other places. And at the end, you'll all be given a gun.
There's a general invitation to a party. And I mean, this isn't said on the stairs, something else like that, get Jack, we've got to get him round here and give him a slap or anything else like that. It weren't a message from Reggie Kray that he came to me and said, Chris, we want Jack to have a little bit of a sort out. You know, take him away on the Wanstead's flats and put one in the back of his head, which you would think, if they wanted to kill the man, that was the way it would be done. In a sensible way, he's done away with, he's taken away and disposed of. It was nothing like that whatsoever.
It was a crude trap for an old villain like McVitie. Hart, Tony Barry, the Lambrianos could all have warned him. Even when they failed to, he should have smelled something a little odd about this sudden invitation. But he was probably too drunk. Barry brought the gun and drove off looking scared before becoming even more involved. Young Ronnie Hart returned. Ronnie posted him as a lookout in an upstairs window facing the street. Just before midnight, Hart saw a beaten-up Ford Zodiac draw up. 5 men got out. The Lambrianos, 2 brothers by the name of Mills, and finally a man in a hat, McVitie. Hart gave the alarm. McVitie burst in, ready for a party. Where's all the birds? All the booze, he shouted. Ronnie Kray was waiting for him, watching from the sofa. Reggie was behind the door.
Where's the birds and the booze? That's the first thing he said, and then he saw Ronnie. And Ronnie just looked up, and he went, hello, Ron. And then he just walked over and hit him underneath the eye with a glass. And when I've had a fucking enough of you, now fuck off. And walked back. So this, and all of a sudden Jack was going, what have I done? What have I done?
Fight develops. Like an argument develops. Then it turns into a fight. A gun is pulled out, starts clicking away, it doesn't work.
And there's a bit of confusion. But I'm convinced had Jack had walked out of the room after Ronnie hit him with a glass, that would have been the end of it. But he didn't.
Outside, big Chrissy Lambriano, who had always wanted to be a gangster, suddenly realized what he had done and was sitting, weeping on the stairs.
Whatever was going down, I wanted no part of it. So I walk outside and Connie Wyatt says to me, what's the matter, Chris? I'm half cut as well. Connie, I didn't come down here for this.
If they'd wanted to kill Jack the Hat, they could have killed him 20 times over, you know. But when a fight happens, it just sort of gets out of hand. And as you say, you go to win. You know, I don't think they said, oh, we'll get Jack the Hat down there because we're going to kill him. Because there were no plans to bury him or do anything or whatever, you know. I don't think it was premeditated. Though they said to send the Lambrianos, soppy nuts Lambriano, to go and get him, you know. It wasn't. I don't think there was any sort of plan to murder anybody. It's beat fuck out of him, yeah. You know. But then all of a sudden, like, things go over the top.
Reggie thrust the knife into his face below the eye. The butchering followed as McVitie sank to his knees. Reggie stabbed his stump in his chest and finished by impaling him through the throat onto the floor. Reggie claims he was gone.
Listen to me, get rid of that. Throw it under the fucking train. And they're gone then. That was the end of it. There we are, left with this. We check on the floor then.
There's Jack the Hat laying in the middle of the floor. I'm looking at him. I can't believe he's dead. This thing is snowballing. Flatware in is borrowed from a woman called Long Carol for this party. She could come back at any time, find a body in her house. We're not playing Cluedo here. This is real life. I go and get a bucket, plastic bucket, and a shovel, and there's all kind of livery stuff, congealed blood. Took it upstairs, go in the toilet, swill it away. Please God, don't let the children wake up, because if they come out, they're going to find a body on the landing. Well, we got the body out and we try to put it in the boot, as you see in these films, and that didn't work, so we put the body on the back seat. Tony then gets in it. He drives away, we're following him. We go on to the Rotherhithe Tunnel. We go through it, but we lose Tony. The lights went against us. We didn't want to attract any attention by racing through. We get to the other side, and we don't know where Tony is, so we're going round in circles looking for him. We finally see him standing on a corner. We pull him, pick him up. What have you done with it, Tony?
As you come out of the tunnel, on down the right, there was a church there. And there'd been a wedding. Now all I want to do is get rid of it. That, as far as I was concerned, you can't drive about with that, obviously. So it was just parked over by this church. I got out of the car and left it. I was picked up and we drove away. Here I am. Gone out for a night's drinking. In wind-up involved the murder and disposing of someone's body. People say to me, I've never done that. I couldn't have done that. But we're as guilty as anyone.
Quite frankly, I think they let us down. You know, if there's an honesty and a nobility, and I use that word in such as there's honour amongst thieves, you understand, then, you know, as the captains of the ship, they should have, when it was beyond the shadow of a doubt, that there was no way that they could save themselves, was to try and save us.
Well, I think one knew it was going to come. There was no other sentence, I suppose, possible at the time. They've been typecast now as criminal celebrities, as celebrity villains, and the picture people have of them is really the picture that came over in that film of them called The Krays. And also, you know, all the sort of gangster reminiscences which have come out of them, which really carry one's knowledge of them no further. Of course, they were gangsters, they committed murder and all the rest of it, but behind it all, I think there was the most terrible, sad story, which is of these identical twins, and one of them was abnormal. He'd been damaged mentally as a child by getting, as far as I can make out, a combination of measles and diphtheria together. Ronnie wasn't normal. Reg was.
There's lots of people walking around in the East End of London that's been hit on the chin by Reggie. But I wouldn't say that about Ronnie. There'd be a different kettle of fish with Ronnie, because Ronnie wouldn't be happy with just hitting you on the chin. He'd look for you until he found you and he would hurt you. Simple as that. You would fear Ronnie. There's no two ways about it. If Reggie sent for you and wanted to see you in Balance Road, you'd go round and see him. You'd have a cup of tea with him and you'd walk out. If Ronnie sent for you, you'd take 6 pairs of pants with you. That's the difference between the two of them.
He was feared, and anybody that said they wasn't frightened of him is telling lies. You know, I mean, I've heard loads of rubbish in the papers and seen all the rest of it. And I tell you what, if the man was alive today, they would be shitting themselves, you know, in case he did ever get out. I mean, let's put it this way. I wasn't frightened of him because I knew how to handle him. But if he had the hump on me, I'd keep well away until Reggie sorted it out.
Reg, all his life, had this thing that he had to look after this sick, unstable, identical twin brother, and he did look after him. The only trouble was the unstable, mentally sick twin was the dominant. If Ronnie hadn't been quite so balmy and hadn't killed George Cornell because he's supposed to have called him the Fat Poof, they'd be stone-rich geezers. They were in most of the frauds in the East End, a lot of protection, a lot of rackets. They really, really didn't need to kill people. But once that killing had happened, then that increased their terror ratio enormously, you see, particularly with Ronnie. Francis Bacon, incidentally, who also knew him, said he had the most frightening face he'd ever seen, which I think from Francis Bacon is quite something. He was a paranoid schizophrenic and he was mad. But he was fascinated by this whole illusory world of gangsterdom. For Ronnie, I think the barriers between real crime and film crime were very blurred, and I think he often stepped over it.
I know what fear is. I had nightmares today over what Kray done to me. And I'm bloody glad he's dead and fucking, you know? Walked upstairs in their gambling club. And as I got halfway up, I saw all these geezers standing this side and that side. And I thought, it's on me. Come in then, with his sloppy voice. Come in then, nothing wrong. I said, all right, well, yeah, sit down and set me in the armchair. As he's turned, I see this big range cooker. I thought he was just trying to frighten me. When he started burning me in my suit and my hair, and I thought the man's fucking crazy, you know? How can the same man do that to anybody, like, you know? But he never finished there. He said, I'm going to burn your fucking eyes out. I thought, so I'm dead. Anyway, someone out the back said, no, Ron, not that. And all of a sudden he went, just like that. He stopped. He went, okay, you can go now.
By the end, they were in a sort of mad gangster movie, you know, it was Stanley Kubrick plus. I was with them the night before they were arrested by chance. You know, I was in a pub with them in the East End. And Reg was in a state, he knew that they were going to be arrested very soon. He was drinking a hell of a lot at the time. He was in a state. And he did suddenly say to me, I want to get away. I want to get out of this. And I kid you not, I said, one place you really could go to is East Timor. There was no extradition treaty, and it would have been very interesting for him, and it was way away. And he seemed very taken with the idea of East Timor at the time. But then he said, but I couldn't do it. He said, I couldn't leave Ron. And I think that's the thing, you see, all the way through, he couldn't leave his brother. He had to look after him. And he loved him. Reg was the one who always had to carry the cat. Reg always trailed behind, caught, cleaning up, doing the dirty work, looking after his brother. I think he'd be too silly and sentimental about calling Reg a victim. He had a good time, he did what he wanted to, he did a lot of very wicked things. He'd be the first to admit himself. But the key part of his defense is his relationship with his identical twin. But then again, you see, he won't ever allow this to be mentioned himself. He won't bring it up himself. He won't talk about it himself. As far as he's concerned, he and Ron were one.
When they went away, as you know, like Ron got certified and everything like that, they still used to write to me. Ron done the painting for me, and his mother gave it to me from him. And every time I look at it, I'll get upset. There it is, where he signed it on the back. Ron Kray, and he calls it Swans on the Lake. Well, if he'd have given it to me, if I'd have been on a visit and he'd give it to me, I'd have told him to keep it. I didn't want it. It's a peculiar one. Have a look. Is this in colour? It upsets me to see. Look at you. It's a human being done this, a man, not a child. I would think that shows you the state of the person's mind itself. It's not a nice thing, it's a horrible thing, isn't it, really? To me, it's a bit pathetic. We did get from Reg at one time, he made this for my wife, for instance, in prison while he was away, which is this musical box. Plays music, that's about 30 years old. Yeah, play music. I'd have a job making that. You know, but I wouldn't have a job making that. I could do that with my eyes shut. I couldn't do that with my eyes shut. This brain is awake, isn't it? This brain is gone. That's the way I see the two things, and that's the difference between Reggie and Ronnie.
An awful lot of people that are Reggie Kray fans are not villains at all. They're just in love with the myth.
There's a very different stuff you can buy, collect, different bits and pieces.
I'll be honest, the authorities are not solely to blame here. Reg courts the press. Had they not kept the myth alive, it would have been out. But in keeping the actual myth alive, it sort of sealed his fate.
No question, all eyes are on this guy, Mr. Reginald Kray. He's a celebrity. And I think, in a funny way, it's this that's seen him through. You know, if you're serving 30-odd years, you've got to have something to sustain you. And if you know that people outside are fascinated by you, if you've had a film made about you, if people have written books about you, you're a somebody. And I think this is at the heart of the whole thing about the Krays. They loved publicity. They wanted to be known as celebrities. As a result, though, he's done his 30 years, he's gone past it, and he's still kept in. But one can see why the Home Secretary and the Parole Board would be reluctant. The way they have become figures, role models for the young and all the rest of it. Of course the publicity and the films and all the other things they've done have damaged them, I think.
He has become a figurehead for what happens to bad people. It's totally ludicrous. It doesn't add up. The amount of years that he's got for what he's done. It's almost like they're holding him to ransom for all those that get away, for every villain that has another book out that crosses over into the mainstream. It's almost as if invisibly that's another year on Reg, because they think, oh my God, if this is happening to this guy, what's going to happen if we let Reg out? I think in all honesty, if they did let him out, okay, there would be a frenzy for about 6 months or a year, whatever, until he was completely milked. And then everyone would say, well, it's Reggie Kray, yeah, he's a human being.
I think the authorities are probably very unhappy about the idea of Reg coming out. This whole iconic thing has grown around him, and he's become more and more perceived as a victim as time goes by, that people do see as unjust and unfair. And so when he comes out, he's going to come out almost as a popular criminal. And that's, I think, for them, is complete anathema. And to suggest that you shouldn't be allowed out because people will want to shower a lot of attention on you means that Reg will never come out of prison if that is their attitude. And that's tragic. I feel very strongly that Reg has just become trapped by this public image. It's almost as though he's been cast in stone. He's a photograph from the 60s, the gangster. And I think for the authorities, that's been quite useful.
It's an interesting question as to how we all think of Reg if you haven't seen him, because we have certain assumptions based on the photographs and iconography of films and old pictures and books and so forth of a slightly nightmarish figure. The reason I was asked to see Reg was A, to look at his current mental state because of concerns about public safety and his health on being released from jail, and B, to have a look at his past history and see what factors might be relevant as to the future as well. Now, of course, he's a retired man. He's in his late 60s. He has, like many people in the late 60s, got one or two problems with vision and hearing. And the difference really is, I suppose, when you talk to him, it's like talking to someone who, in a way, their language and the style in which they speak and address you, you really do feel at times you're talking to someone from 69 as opposed to 99.
Somebody told me that Reggie Kray sends letters out of prison with a photograph as he used to be, not as he is, because he lives in the past. Now, my argument is not that he lives in the past, is that nobody will let him live in the future. Nobody will let him live right now. No, I don't think society knows Reggie Kray. I think they've been presented with a TV dinner. That's Reggie Kray. There's nothing else to him. They've seen the books, they've seen the films, but they were all made by other people. They know nothing. They assume. And that's what he has to live with on a daily basis. It's where I had to live. And I look along this landing and I think about the hundreds, thousands that have gone behind the door of each cell. And how many people have been really rehabilitated? Not many. There was no rehabilitation for someone like me, as there really is no rehabilitation for somebody like Reggie Kray. Because we don't need it. It's non-existent. It's just a word in prison. We rehabilitate ourselves. We come to the conclusion of who we are and what we are and what's acceptable and what's decent, right and proper. I'd seen the absolute worst of human nature. I mean, I had messed up so many people's lives. Eventually it got to the stage where I couldn't wait to get back to the cell. That was the love affair, and I could shut the door. And I could look out the sky. I'd seen nothing of nature for years. But here I could watch the starlings, and it never failed to amaze me about starlings. They could never be satisfied. The mother and father would run off and get them food, bring it back, bring it back, bring them back, and they forever had an open mouth. I watched robins and sparrows having dust baths, things I didn't know birds did. And I began to open up and I began to look at nature in itself, and I saw that things died and things regenerated. I watched a tree, in the summer, beautiful green, and the flowers came up, and in the autumn the leaves began to drop and they died and they went to nowhere. Where were the things of beauty? But I had to wait for another season for them to come back. And I found that in my own life. As I've lost things, maybe for a short span of time, maybe a long span of time, but they have come back. The beauty has come back. It's about now and the few years that remain. There's always time for turning and getting back something of what you lost.
So right for all these bloody do-gooders saying, oh yeah, he should come out, he's done 30 years. But Judge Melford Stevenson said, you'll go away for at least 30 years. He didn't say he was going to come out after he'd done 30 years, Reggie Kray or Ronnie Kray, right? Right? And he's still in there, and that's where he should be. He's an animal, and they lock wild animals up, and fuck him.
You look forward to the next parole review when you may have some idea of how things may change. The authorities have made it very clear that the very best they will offer him will be a move to a D category prison. And so we have that wait until the next parole review, and then even if he gets a D category prison, we have whatever amount of time he'll have to spend there, which could be anything 2 to 3 years. I can't imagine any more real and true reason why Reg could be turned down this time. And if he is, I'll be astonished.
Why is Reggie Kray still in jail? The answers seem to me to be as follows. 1, no reason at all. It's just the usual inertia, cock up, no one can quite work out how to get him out. 2, he hasn't gone through his proper remorse program. He hasn't said the right things to people and thus isn't psychologically able to get out. 3, he's a risk to the public because he's still perhaps a criminal, possibly got some sort of psychological problems. I can certainly exclude that. 4, that there's a sense in which he is an example of villainy and thus keeping him behind the bars is a signal and a warning to all potential junior Krays coming out of the system. 5, it's some kind of concern or conspiracy about keeping him there because when he's there he won't say things that he might say outside of jail, i.e. he knows something that the establishment wants to cover up. I don't believe that, but the more they keep him behind bars, unnecessarily in my view, the more people start thinking along those lines.
Their criminal empire lasted only 10 years, but they spent 30 years in prison, during which they became living legends. The twins didn't begin their careers in London's glittering West End. They started out in another world, only a few miles away, the poverty-stricken East End. They clawed their way out, using brutality and their special magnetism, recognized even by tough-guy villains like Joey Pyle.
It was part of their mystique that they was, this identical side, identical twins. And if you were at one, you had to hurt the other one.
It meant they could fight as one. They had telepathy between themselves. They could understand what the other was doing or saying without actually using any words.
It was a partnership. They wouldn't do anything without each other. You understand me? And if one was upset about something, he wouldn't have nobody else around. It was just them to talk about it.
The twins were not only physically alike, they were both homosexual, still illegal in 1960s England. Reg fought against it. Ron delighted in it, amazing other criminals like former top safe blower Lenny Hamilton.
Ronnie, he didn't like women. The only woman he liked was his mama, right? Violet. She was a nice woman, and he was homosexual, Ronnie. We knew he liked boys, and with Reggie, he liked girls and boys,
Ron was quite remarkable in many ways, and one of the most remarkable things was that he was the first, as far as I can make out, the first gay gangster in England who actually came out of the closet.
The Krays' true notoriety came from violent crime. They treated it like any other business, even calling their criminal empire the Firm. The twins' aggression won approval from older violent criminals like Frankie Fraser.
When I looked at Ronnie and Reggie, I could tell this violence in them, if necessary. They definitely had it, and in abundance.
They were dangerous people, and they weren't the kind of people that you'd mess around with. If you messed around with them, then you was going to get it.
I was terrified of them, to be honest with you, I was, I don't mind admitting it, but But they were animals. Well, animals, you can't... Animals, I've got respect for animals. I've got no respect for them too, like, you know.
They had that aura about them, and they were powerful, yeah, there's no doubt about it.
If they hurt people, they like people to be around them and see it. And this was putting fear into people in the East End.
If your passion blows by